Hello book fans. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Better Living by Alastair Campbell. So he was the spin doctor for Tony Blair's, who helped Labour go to success over a number of years, double victory at elections. So it's another book about how to have a mental health, good well-being, etc. So is it as good as Depression and How to Survive It by Spike Milligan and Anthony Clare? That's the question. Well, it comes from a different approach. This is written by a psychologist, so from a clinical perspective, but this one is written from somebody who's actually experienced proper full-on depression. And eventually I'll get around to Shetland Buzz, finally a book that isn't about depression. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to do Living Better with Alastair Campbell. And but also a bit of background history on Alastair. He's a Scotsman really, but he was brought up in Yorkshire. So I suppose he's a bit Yorkshire really, but he's got a Scottish family. He plays the bagpipes. He's quite an interesting and quite a gregarious character. There's his picture there. And yeah, he's the kind of guy that commands a room when he walks into it. What a guy! And he does blow his own trumpet a little bit in here, but he also blows his own negative trumpet. So he talks about, he's very honest basically about why he suffered from depression, how low he got, and kind of why he thought he got there. So there were some conditions in the setup, and he tries to explain, the kind of hows, but ultimately there's also a question mark and of why each downward motion occurs. But this book also offers some positives about how to survive depression. A little bit like Spike Milligan and Anthony Clare's book, but it's more practical guidance from a real sufferer of depression. Somebody who's got some really good hints and tips. It's quite a short book, an easy reader as well. It's not as bad, not as depressive. I found this book, the Spike Milligan one, was too intense. It took quite a long time to read. This one was a lot easier because I think Alastair Campbell's character is very likeable, and he is a writer. He does come from a journalist background, so he knows how to write. So I think that comes across really well in this book, and it was an enjoyable read. But I did find at parts I did kind of struggle and want to just stop. But I think that's the same with any book about depression. But I think it's useful to read these books, and this is probably one of the most accessible ones out there, especially the recent books. So his background is very interesting and quite diverse, but he's quite an intense character because he tends to go through these really focused periods in his life. And he says like his 10 years in Downing Street, where he was advising Tony Blair and doing the media side of things, where they called him the spin doctor, but I suppose that's what politicians need these days. And it was really intense. Tony Blair was very demanding, it sounds. I mean, that Tony Blair, he doesn't come across well. I mean, he comes across well as a person, but the kind of things that he was asking Alastair to do, the kind of sacrifices, I mean, maybe he wasn't aware, maybe he's a bit of a megalomaniac. I've not read Tony Blair's autobiography, I don't know Tony Blair, he may well be, but he's a leader, so maybe he is a bit. But I think it was unfair what he was asking of Alastair, but nevertheless, I mean, he still is very proud of that bit of work he did, and he knows that he worked with some positive characters, so Tony Blair and Gordie Brown. He talks about them. Let's ignore the war for a little minute because that's going too deep, balls deep into politics. But he knows he did a lot of good. He knows there's things that he could have carried on, and part of him kind of regrets that, but also acknowledges that if he'd carried on, he could have been doing a suicide because it was that intense. But it's quite an interesting story, and I can see why Stephen Fry says this book could save lives. Well, it could well do, and as with the other book on depression, the last part is probably the most important part because it's got the advised part of it. A lot of this is filler in setting it up, because I think this explains why if you meet the kind of person in real life who is really gregarious and outgoing. You know, you think to yourself, this person is amazing. You know, they have everything. They have everything there in their life, just perfect. They're successful. They're really positive, and they get things done. And they seem really, really content. Why would they possibly commit suicide? And the next day, you find that they have. This could explain a little bit of that. There's always an element that we won't know about. But Alastair has a scale of 1 to 10. With 1 being, I think, or 0 maybe it is, let's call it 1 to 10, but 1 is super happiness, the ultimate of being happy. 10 is you're in the ground because you've just committed suicide. So he's been at a 9 on his scale. So this is a way that he's used to, a method that he's used to deal with his illness, which it's been ongoing throughout his life. He's talking about, from his 20s, etc., going through his entire life. And one way that Alastair dealt with it is with drink. So drinking excessive amounts. So it doesn't actually explicitly say it, but it sounds to me like alcoholism. I've not been an alcoholic, but I don't drink, and perhaps for similar reasons, because to me it's a depressant. I find it tires me out too much, and I don't get the benefit anymore of the alcohol. When I was in my 20s, I'd go out and be like, doing mad things, crazy things, and I enjoy it. But then afterwards, you could kind of recover. Now I can't. I'm just getting too old for it. But sometimes I can see how that's used as an emotional crutch. It's used to survive. So that's one of the things that Alastair has knocked on the head. At least the intense drinking. He still does drink. For me, if I was him, I'd probably not drink at all. Reading some of the stories, but there are some fascinating stories in here, and you're really warm to his character. It's really well written. You can tell he's had an editor look at it as well and check it out, but you can also see the skill in his writing. I think it's very, very accessible. So his background life, he came from Scotland, went to Yorkshire, he grew up in Yorkshire with his family, brothers. And he has had a lot of loss in his life. His brothers have died, and he's also had a suicide in the family, so it talks about that, and that comes into the genetic part of mental illness and what's stored there. And he explores a lot of things, like the clinical side of things as well, like, because he went to a psychologist and he's been prescribed medication, and he has his own thoughts on medication. He doesn't believe in medication, but he also uses medication, so he has used it and he recognises that it is something that he uses. But he also talks about the alternates to medication, that it's not always the answer. Obviously you need to be having some expert advice. Don't listen to the man on the street. And he says himself, don't ask me for what I'm not a doctor. If you want to know, if you have problems, if you have a friend that's got depression, then seek medical attention. That is the number one. Even he says that he has extensive experience from his own perspective and from friends and family's perspective. And I think that's the overriding message on all of these books, that if you're on a downer, speak to friends, talk to people. But I think the ultimate aim is going to be to get medical advice. So let's look at the kind of one of the chapters here is on mind exercise. Let's talk about some of them. So we have the idea of a gratitude versus resentment. So we can tend to focus on the negatives in our lives. So his idea is the idea behind this. This was kind of stuff that was exercises that were given to him by a medical professional who was helping him out there. Can't remember the name of the guy, but he's in here somewhere, Simon or whatever his name is. Anyway, gratitude versus resentment. So you write a list of things that you're grateful for, and then a lot of things that you resent. So you might be able to see where I'm going with this, but I wrote my own list. So my own list: gratitude, wife, Florence the cat, obviously, family, chums, and then I kind of go from there to curry, other cats, because Florence is our cat, obviously other cats, exercise, I like exercise, beating Jake at exercise, that's even better than standard exercise, obviously. The winter is excellent because you don't have to do gardening in the winter. Clouds, waves, we go on from there. Sunshine, lions, especially good sleep, good vets, having a good vet for Florence recently, very grateful for that. We freaking needed that. Things that I resent, let's go on to those. Monday deadlines, Christ on a bike, yes. and IT failures, those two combined are just my worst day ever at the moment. I can think of worse days. Obviously death, morbid things like death in the family, death of friends, that kind of thing would be in the... I mean, that's not really resentful though. That's negative. That would be a positive, negative one. Poor drivers. Yeah, people who are... When I'm on the road, I'm always muttering to myself about drivers. People who can't park, for example, that gets to me as well. That annoys me. Take pictures of them. I rate them from 1 to 5, or 0 to 5 in some cases. I hardly ever give a 0. Brexit, there's one. I don't mean just Brexit happening as well. I mean the ridiculousness of allowing Brexit to happen, allowing another state to influence our political processes, like Russia. That is a big resentment. Thanks, Russia, for that. I mean, obviously Brexit didn't happen because of Russia. It was a thing anyway. It was already happening, but there was a certain amount of support, and I resent political interference in our political... And that brings me on to... I'm wanging on about politics. I've not even got past Brexit yet. I'm going to stop at Brexit. There's many reasons why I don't like Brexit. Boris Johnson and the whole freaking cabinet are useless. They're useless. Look at the news. The news! This is all the news and politics, isn't it? And Boris Johnson... He is just somebody who would do anything. He's and ultimately he seems to be very bribable. He would do anything for power, I think. Jacob Tree-Frog, Jacob Rees-Mogg, that guy, he just comes across badly, doesn't he? He's one of those silver spooners up his bum kind of thing. I really don't like him. I don't like the way he comes across. I don't know if maybe he's a nice guy, but on TV he just seems like an enormous knob. Jobs. I mean by jobs, I don't mean employment, I mean extra jobs as well. As when you finish work you go, relax, no, but there's lots of jobs to do. Like washing up's good, there's certain jobs I don't like doing. Celery and sweet corn, why do they exist? I don't know. And then dead animals, why do dead animals exist? Well, they die, don't they? But I mean, why do we make them dead to eat them? That seems a bit pointless. That's political. Yeah, I resent that coming up because it makes my life more complicated when I'm trying to eat. So for me, from my perspective, I want to just be able to eat my food. I don't want to be bothered by nonsense. But yeah, let's have a look if any of those tally. Let's go back to Alastair. So he talks about 3 children growing up, so same as Florence, the cat. A partner that stayed with him, yeah, exactly, I feel the same thing. Having a partner that stays with you. Fiona's love and support, yeah, love and support. Practical sustenance. People, I mean, people is a big one here, who are supportive of you. Chums and all that. The dog, genuine friends, that kind of thing. This is all the positives. Hampstead Heath, yeah, exercise, go for a walk, get away from it. Look at the sky, I like sky, yeah. Ability to play the bagpipes, yeah, he can play the bagpipes like nobody's business. So, never having to fear hunger, yeah, shelter, that's one I should have put in, yeah. Something that we completely forget exists. It's crazy but true. Having seen the world, yeah, I agree with that. Having seen the world, I've had that privilege. Contact books, so this is about work. Motown, Diana Ross, yeah, I agree with him there. ABBA, completely disagree, that would be in the resentment box for me. Courage, dreams, resentment list. So he's got asthma. I mean, I kind of have that, but from a perspective of being prescribed an inhalant. So asthma, I've not got asthma, but being prescribed an inhaler, yeah, I resent that. I hold that against that doctor. Depression, yes, that's one for the resentment list. I've not had depression for a long time, so I'm kind of alright. But yeah, shit happening, yeah, that's in the resentment list. Friends, family dying, definitely, that's in that box. Feeling misunderstood, yeah, I can understand that. My ability to make bad situations in my own life better. My inability to make bad situations better. Feeling that Fiona has the same inability when it comes to me. Resenting my reputation. So he's got a reputation, yeah, for being a people person, lighting up a room, etc. And also being a spin doctor, as well as writing this book for depression. I mean, I don't know if he resents that. Cynicism, celebrity magazines, crap TV. Sales, phone calls, racism, misogyny, where we all resent that. Polluting cars, dog owners who don't clear up after them. That was a big one for me for a long time. Yes, my Celtic brethren knows what it's all about. But bad service at restaurants, yeah, kind of, yeah. Chewing gum, maybe. But yeah, you can see where the reason why we write these things down is so that we can put things into perspective and focus on, what can bring us down and what can bring us up as well. So it's a helper to know where to steer our lives, because I know for a fact we can often neglect the people in our lives that matter the most. So we need to know but where we're going to put our energy, as it were. So we put our energy into positive things, not into negative things. Like one of the bits of advice he comes to in this book is put your phone down, mobile phone. Mine's charging over there. Don't read the news, read books. That is a good bit of advice. I mean, you can pay attention to a little bit of news, but don't focus on it. And read more books than you do news, or don't watch news at all. If it brings you down, don't watch it at all. Ignore the freaking thing, because your mental health is more important, your family is more important, and your colleagues and friends are colleagues. Friends. Whatever. The people you're surrounded with who matter more than the news, because sometimes it can absorb us and can get the better of us, and we can get angry. It can bring us down into depression. To medicate or not to medicate, that's his section on drugs, on druggies, and he talks about Class A drugs as well. So he talks about his own experiences, well, his friends' experiences. He's very anti-drugs, so it's more his friends or people he knows experiences with kind of drugs. The search for a cure, well, looking for a cure, is depression genetic? So he talks about his own family's kind of experiences with depression, and their experiences with him and how they've perceived that is very interesting as well. But I think a lot of this back end of the book is very important and very useful. If you're feeling a bit down, if you're feeling like you might be going into depression, if you think your friends are depressed, it's very useful to read this. How to live with depression. It gives a little bit of advice to family as well, I think. Or you can take this and read it, and you can see where you need to go, what you need to do. So there's a postscript. He said he was going to give his wife the last word. He never did. He wrote a postscript, but it's quite useful because he has a list of things to do, like a to-do list that he needs to keep on top of kind of daily to keep himself mentally healthy. So number one is stay active. So this is kind of when your mood is low, your energy is low. Temptation is to do nothing, so resist it. So active, I assume that is like do a crossword or whatever. But exercise comes in at number two, so that is also activity. And so you need to do exercise daily to keep fit. Watch your diet. Make sure you don't eat crap. Eat good stuff. Watch the booze. That is a big one actually. Watch the booze. Booze is a depressant. It's a drug. And you can surge into alcoholism as well, but it also is a big one for depression. So you have to watch that. Sleep, very, very important. One thing that is very important to me, to everybody, get your sleep. And when you're depressed, you can end up having more sleep as well. But I think this is talking about get enough sleep. Get your 8 hours a night at least. That's what that's saying. If you have nights where you're not sleeping, you're feeding the depression in a way. Read books, not newspapers. Again, we've covered that. Cut down on social media, a big one, because social media is full of shite. It's full of nonsense, so you need to cut that down. We all need to cut that down because it can be a vortex of doom. We know it. The algorithms point us towards doom. And from my perspective, the YouTube algorithm as well is one that I need to completely ignore, because it's like, oh no, it's not, my videos aren't getting enough watches. Well, nobody's interested in them, or the algorithm isn't interested in them, so I get angry at the algorithm for not being interested in me. Well, wake up and smell the coffee. There's plenty more channels that do book reviews about Alastair Campbell. In other words, forget about it. Listen to music regularly and make music is another one. So if you can play some music, then play some music, do it. Think in ink. So why think in ink? Well, there's a therapeutic value to writing things down, like a blog, a journal, a diary, that kind of thing. Or even creative writing, why not? Get out there, put your own thoughts on paper, it's very useful. I write poems, one a day, every day. Really look after the people closest to you, obviously, yeah, kind of, but it's something we ignore, as I've mentioned earlier. Keep in touch with the people you would normally keep in touch with the people you would normally be in touch with. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Get in touch with someone you've lost contact with. Do something good for somebody every day. If you're finding it hard to do difficult things, try a few easy ones first. That is the way to do it. Stay curious, enjoy nature in or out, so take a walk in the park. Buy some water, apparently is a good benefit for mental health. Why did we move here? yeah, sorry about that, I'm sorry. Didn't listen to you. Listen to your partner when they're saying don't move away from the seaside. Remember that all crises end eventually. That's an important one, especially in the pandemic. Keep things in perspective. See an opportunity in every setback. So, postscript is pretty damned useful. Good advice there. There's another concept that I don't quite understand. This is we're coming to the end now. Build your own jam jar. So this is it. I don't know if you can see that, maybe. But the jam jar at the bottom of it has the genetics, the genes. These are things you can't do anything about. And life, that is something you can't do anything about. So this is kind of activities that you put in your jam jar. And it's saying, what do you put in there? What is your life made up of? So decide how you're going to live your life based on what will give you positivity. So look at your key relationships, your friends, your family, your loved ones, and put them in that jam jar and say, they're going to have this much, this is important to me. Meaningful activity, so something in your life, job, or activity otherwise. YouTube, is that meaningful? Well, maybe it is to you, and it can be meaningful, so put that in as well. So meaningful activity that you feel like you're doing something important. And then things that are special to you. So in Alastair Campbell's case, it'd be Blackburn Rovers or whatever they're called. Oh, Burnley. It'd be Burnley, for example. But it could be sport for you, it could be jogging, it could be swimming, it could be archery, it could be something, just reading books is another one that you need to put in there. The concept is, if your jam jar gets to the top and overflows, that's mental unhealth. So you need to put in a load of stuff that is positive rather than let it fill up with negative stuff that's going to bring you down like a neggy Nigel. So that is the concept behind it, I think, if I believe it correctly, which I may not do, but it's useful. It's a process that can be useful to help you with to stay well ultimately, and that's the important thing, to focus on what is important, because we can end up becoming tunnel visioned on the negative stuff. Like if you're in traffic and you're getting road rage, you're focused on the car in front of you who's being an idiot, yeah? And you're focused 100% on that. Well, why not forget about it? Because it doesn't matter, the car's in front of you, let them go. Just leave it. Hold back. Don't pump your horn, don't flash your lights, because it's not helpful. It's bringing you down, it's bringing the driver in front of you down, and yeah, maybe you think they deserve it, maybe they do, who knows, but they're hardly paedophiles or murderers or rapists, are they? You're putting them on the same level when they're really not. I mean, sometimes it is dangerous driving, but maybe they're just driving slower than you are, in which case they have every right to. You can drive 50 miles an hour on a road that is 60 miles an hour limit, because there's a reason for that limit. You don't always drive at the limit is not a goal. Yes. I'm not telling myself that because I don't have that problem of slow drivers. I may just say bejesus, but I don't get angry with them. But I'm talking to you if you have that problem, which nobody I know has that problem. So people who are watching this video don't have that problem. So I don't know what it's a good example though. Putting things out of context is one of those things. So overall, how much do I rate it as a book? I would say it's 3.5, probably. No, let's up it to a 4 because it's important context. As a read, maybe it is 3.5, but I'd say it's a 4 as a book. The cat wants to come in, so I'm going to have to look after that certain bit of my jam jar. You can let her in if you want. That part of my jam jar to make sure that Florence is looked after, is fed or whatever she actually needs. But yeah. Overall, this is a good read. I would say I'd recommend that you read this whenever, because I think it's a very accessible one. It's not too negative with the neggy Nigel bits. It's as far as you can go with a book that's ultimately about depression. It's reasonably light reading, but there are bits that's it's depression. It's not going to have 100% positivity, but overall it's more helpful than it is unhelpful. As in, it's not unhelpful. It's very helpful. Very good book, worth reading. So yeah, just get it from your local library, as I did, because that's the best way to read books. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I've rambled on enough about that book. If you've enjoyed it, drop a like and a subscribe. Just go hit that bell as well for future content. But thank you very much for watching and have a great day. Oh yeah, don't forget, one thing I didn't mention, that as the pandemic draws to a close, as it allegedly is, this book may be more important now than ever before, because we've all gone through a period of lockdowns and kind of wearing masks, looking after each other, living. There has been a bit of fear in there, but now that things are going through, maybe there's going to be some changes in your life, in your job, where you might start to feel a bit down because of the changes that come in. This is the most important time to look after each other. Look at your friends as well. If they start going quiet when they're not normally, just check in with them, make sure they're alright, because you never know. And jobs change, there's a lot of changes going on, so another reason to read this book, because it would be helpful. Anyway, I've talked enough. Overall, have a most excellent day and be excellent.